If you're someone who spends a lot of time in the kitchen and enjoys cooking, then this feeling will probably sound very familiar. Kitchen knives always need to stay sharp to make cooking easier and safer. However, knife sharpeners on the market don't always meet our expectations. Some of them look solid and promising, but after a short period of use, they start losing effectiveness or simply stop working altogether. I've often found myself wondering how many knife sharpeners we end up replacing in just 1 year because their quality doesn't match the price we paid. Meanwhile, our kitchen knives are constantly waiting to be sharpened again, while our wallets become more cautious about spending money on tools that seem small but add up over time. Not everyone is willing to spend a significant amount of money every time a knife sharpener wears out. And that's exactly what made me start thinking differently. I asked myself whether there could be a simpler, more affordable solution that still gets the job done properly. So what if I told you that we could actually make our own knife sharpener, one that costs much less, lasts longer, and only requires a very small amount of money to replace when it eventually wears out? Would you believe that something like this is really possible? So you don't need to worry anymore. Let me think for a moment. Alright, I've got an idea. Do you think that starting with something as simple as this old CD, we could create a knife sharpener that actually meets proper standards? It doesn't look like much at first, but items that seem useless can often be reused and given a second life. To be more precise, we're taking advantage of the surface structure of this disc. It's not meant to sharpen the knife directly, but to act as a base. That's why I'm sanding both sides of the CD, creating enough texture so that attaching 2 different types of sandpaper to each side will be easier and more secure in the next step. The first type of sandpaper I choose to secure onto the CD surface is 400 grit sandpaper. This grit level offers a good balance. It's not too coarse to damage the base surface, yet rough enough to provide the friction needed during use. 400 grit sandpaper is commonly used in the initial preparation stage to remove smoothness and create better grip for later steps. Using this grit at the beginning helps stabilize the working surface, allows the knife to make more consistent contact, and makes pressure easier to control. That's exactly why I selected 400 grit sandpaper as the first fixed layer before moving on to other grit levels in the next stages. The second type of sandpaper I use is 1000 grit sandpaper. Compared to 400 grit, This one is much finer, with a smoother surface and far fewer deep scratches. The purpose of 1000 grit sandpaper isn't rough sharpening, but refining the blade after the initial sharpening stage. Once the blade has been shaped and regained basic sharpness on the 400 grit side, moving to the 1000 grit sandpaper helps smooth the cutting edge, reduce burrs, and improve sharpness in a more controlled and consistent way. This results in a blade that's not only sharp, but also smoother and more durable over time. By combining 400 grit and 1000 grit sandpaper on both sides of the CD, we end up with a simple yet effective knife sharpener that can be adjusted easily depending on the condition of the blade. And if you don't want to wear out your hands by sharpening manually, having a grinder at home is definitely a big advantage. That's exactly why I need to drill a hole in the center of the CD. This opening allows the disc to be securely mounted onto the grinder's shaft, making the sharpening process smoother, more consistent, and far less tiring than doing everything by hand. Next, I'll demonstrate a simulated sharpening motion to show the correct knife sharpening posture. I recommend watching this part carefully first, paying attention to how the knife is held and the sharpening angle. Once that's clear, we can move on to the actual sharpening. This approach helps ensure better results and safer handling. Remember to flip the disc and switch to the other side after finishing the first side. Don't skip this step. After finishing the sharpening process, the next step is to polish the disc surface using a multi-purpose oil. This helps smooth the surface, reduce friction, and improve performance for future sharpening sessions. Alright, the blade looks polished now, almost like it's brand new. But the real question is how it will perform in a test. Alright then, let's get started. As someone with many years of experience in the kitchen, I can confidently say that this test was truly a success. I barely had to apply any force at all, yet the cut came out clean, smooth, and visually pleasing. The blade moved across the surface effortlessly, without catching, tearing, or dragging, and that feeling alone clearly shows that the knife has reached an excellent level of sharpness. What really satisfies me, however, is not just the final result but the entire process that led to it. Starting with an old CD, something most people would consider useless and ready to throw away, combined with a few simple sheets of sandpaper and a bit of patience, we were able to create a knife sharpening tool that actually works. It's practical, cost-effective, and gives us full control right in our own kitchen. This experience is a good reminder that the best solutions don't always come from expensive equipment or complicated machines. Very often they come from understanding the basic principles, slowing down, paying attention to details, and making smart use of what we already have around us. When you take your time and do each step carefully, the result can easily exceed what you originally expected. I hope this small idea gives you another useful option, something simple, easy to apply, and suitable for everyday cooking. Thank you for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of this video.